The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a deep rumble that echoed through the vast space. Ambassador Han Wu walked through them with steady steps, his black diplomatic uniform crisp and clean. Behind him, 2 human aides carried data tablets filled with colony reports and expansion requests. The chamber was enormous, built to hold representatives from over 800 different species across the galaxy. Han Wu had been Earth's voice in this place for 3 years now. 3 years of careful words, polite smiles, and endless patience as alien species treated humans like children who had just learned to walk. He took his place at the small podium marked with Earth's symbol, a simple blue and green circle that looked tiny compared to the elaborate emblems of other worlds. The Velkari Chancellor rose from his elevated seat. His species looked like giant spiders made of silver metal, with 8 legs and multiple glowing eyes that never seemed to blink. When he spoke, his voice came through translation devices that made every word sound cold and mechanical. "We gather today to address the human expansion problem," the Chancellor announced. His eyes focused on Han Wu like lasers. The species known as humans have been placing colonies in restricted space. Han Wu felt his jaw tighten but kept his expression calm. He had expected this moment for months. Reports had been coming in about alien ships watching human colonies from a distance. He knew they were building up to something big. "With respect, Chancellor," Han Wu said, activating his podium speaker system, "the worlds we have settled were uninhabited. We followed all established protocols for expansion. Every colony was registered through proper channels." A sound like angry snakes filled the chamber as the Nithak representative uncoiled from her seat. The Nithaks looked like enormous serpents covered in dark scales, with arms that ended in sharp claws. When she spoke, her forked tongue flicked out between words. "Protocols mean nothing when you lack the wisdom to use them properly," she hissed. "Humans are newcomers here. You have been in space for barely 200 years. My people have ruled the stars for 10,000. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Han Wu heard dozens of different alien languages mixing together in a chorus of disapproval. His hands gripped the edges of his podium tighter. "Age does not determine right," he replied. "Those worlds had no life on them when we arrived. We brought life to dead rocks floating in space. We built cities and farms. We made homes for families who needed them." The Chancellor's mechanical laugh echoed off the chamber walls. "Homes? You call those scattered settlements homes? Your entire species crowds together on one small world like insects in a hive. You breed too fast and consume too much. The galaxy has no room for such appetite." Han Wu's aide, a young woman named Park Sun, whispered urgent numbers in his ear. Earth's population had reached 12 billion people the previous year. Food production was at maximum capacity. The ocean cities were overcrowded and the underground settlements were running out of space. Without the outer colonies, Earth would face starvation within a decade. "Our colonies provide food and resources for our homeworld," Han Wu explained to the chamber. "We are not expanding for conquest. We are expanding for survival." "Your survival is not our concern," declared the Draxian representative. The Draxians were warriors who looked like walking tanks made of bone and muscle. Their ambassador wore battle armor even in the peaceful council chamber. "You will recall your colony ships immediately. You will abandon your illegal settlements. You will return to your designated sector and remain there." Han Wu looked around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces. Some looked bored as if this was just routine business. Others showed clear hostility toward humans. A few seemed almost amused, like adults watching children argue over toys. "And if we refuse?" he asked quietly. The Chancellor's eyes blazed brighter. "Then you will learn why younger species listen to their elders." The vote was called immediately. No debate, no discussion, no chance for humans to present their case properly. One by one, species after species voted to force human withdrawal from the outer colonies. The tally appeared on screens throughout the chamber in glowing numbers that climbed higher and higher. Han Wu watched the count with growing horror. 847 votes to force human withdrawal. 1 vote against, Earth's own vote, which counted for nothing in the face of such overwhelming opposition. "The motion passes," the Chancellor announced with satisfaction. "All human vessels will withdraw from contested space within 6 months. All colonies will be abandoned. Any human presence beyond your designated boundaries after that deadline will be considered an act of aggression against the Galactic Council." Han Wu's hands were shaking now. but his voice stayed steady. This decision will condemn billions of humans to poverty and starvation. Our colonies are home to over 50 million people. Where are they supposed to go? Home to Earth, the Nithak representative said with cruel humor. Learn to live within your means, little humans. Learn to control your breeding. Learn your place. The session ended abruptly. Alien delegates filed out of the chamber, chatting among themselves as if nothing important had happened. They had just sentenced an entire species to slow death by overcrowding, and they treated it like approving a budget report. Han Wu remained at his podium long after the chamber emptied. His aides waited patiently beside him, not sure what to say. Finally, Park Sun spoke up. Sir, what are our orders? Han Wu straightened his uniform and picked up his data tablets. His face was calm again, but his eyes were hard as steel. We return to Earth. We report to the President and the Defense Council, and we start making some very difficult decisions. As they walked through the empty chamber toward the exit, Han Wu looked up at the elaborate ceiling painted with scenes of galactic unity and cooperation. The artwork showed different species working together to build a better future for everyone. He wondered if the artists had ever bothered to ask humans if they wanted to be part of that future. Ambassador, Park Sun asked as they reached the doors. What happens now? Han Wu paused with his hand on the door control. Now we discover what humans are really made of, he said quietly. The galaxy thinks we are weak because we are young. They think we will bow our heads and accept their judgment like obedient children. He pressed the control and the doors opened onto the docking bay where their ship waited. Beyond the transparent walls, stars glittered in the darkness of space. Stars that would soon be forbidden to human travelers. They are about to learn, Han Wu continued as they walked toward their ship, that being young does not mean being weak, and sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do to someone is back them into a corner with no way out. The transport ships arrived at New Sol Colony, just as the morning sun painted the sky orange and pink. Director Kim Hana stood on the landing platform watching the massive vessels settle onto the concrete, with heavy thuds that shook the ground. Each ship could carry 10,000 people and their belongings back to Earth. She needed 50 of them to evacuate everyone. Kim Hana had built this colony with her own hands. She remembered the early days when there was nothing here but red dirt and rocks. No buildings, no farms, no roads, just empty land under an alien sky. Now the colony stretched to the horizon with gleaming cities, green farmlands, and happy families who called this world home. How long do we have? Asked Commander Choi Day as he walked up beside her. He was in charge of the Colonial Defense Forces, though his small fleet of patrol ships would be useless against a real military attack. 6 months, Kim Hana replied without taking her eyes off the transport ships. The Council gave us 6 months to pack up 50 million people and leave everything we built behind. Choi Day spat on the ground. 50 million people. 27 colonies across 12 star systems. All because some alien bureaucrats decided we don't deserve to live here. Families were already gathering at the landing platforms with their suitcases and cargo containers. Kim Hana watched a little girl clutch a stuffed animal while her parents argued about what to leave behind. An old man sat on a bench staring at the house he had built for his retirement. A teenage boy kicked at the dirt, angry that he had to leave his friends and the only home he had ever known. This isn't right, Choi Day muttered. We followed their rules. We filed the proper paperwork. We settled on empty worlds that nobody else wanted. And now they're throwing us out like garbage. Kim Hana's communication device beeped with an incoming message from Earth. She read it quickly and felt her stomach turn cold. Food riots in Mumbai and Lagos, she reported. Earth's population just hit 12.5 billion. The ocean cities are at maximum capacity and the underground settlements are running out of power. And they want us to cram 50 million more people into that mess? Choi Day shook his head. Earth can't support that many people. The colonies provide 40% of the food supply. Without us, people will starve. The evacuation continued for weeks. Every day, more transport ships landed and took away pieces of human civilization. Libraries full of books, art galleries with paintings and sculptures, schools where children had learned to read, hospitals where babies had been born. All of it had to be abandoned because the aliens said so. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Yoon Jae called an emergency meeting of the Global Assembly. The huge chamber was packed with representatives from every nation and colony. The air buzzed with angry voices speaking dozens of languages. The situation is clear, President Yoon announced as he took the podium. The Galactic Council has ordered us to abandon our colonies and return to Earth. They have given us 6 months to comply or face military action. Defense Minister Baek Mira stood up from her seat. Mr. President, we have to consider our options carefully. Earth has been part of the Galactic Council for 20 years. We depend on alien technology for our computers, our medical equipment, our space travel. If we anger them, they could cut us off completely. Cut us off from what? Demanded Governor Lee Kyung from the Mars colony. From being treated like servants? From begging for permission to breathe? They already treat us like insects. At least insects don't have to say thank you for being stepped on. The chamber erupted in shouting. Some representatives wanted to negotiate with the council. Others wanted to fight back. A few suggested accepting the terms and finding ways to make Earth support more people. President Yoon raised his hand for silence. There is another option, he said quietly. Article 7 of the Galactic Charter allows any member species to withdraw from the Council entirely. We could leave on our own terms instead of being kicked out on theirs. The chamber went completely silent. Leaving the Galactic Council was something no species had ever done before. It would mean total isolation from the galactic community. No trade, no technology sharing, no protection from hostile aliens. That would be suicide, whispered Minister Beck. We would be completely alone in a dangerous galaxy. We're alone now, President Yoon replied. The difference is that we would be alone with dignity instead of alone with shame. The debate continued for hours. Representatives argued about trade agreements and defense pacts and technological dependencies. But in the end, the vote was close. 847 to 756 in favor of withdrawal. Within hours, Ambassador Han Wu received his new instructions. He returned to the Galactic Council chamber one final time. The aliens seemed surprised to see him again so soon. Do you bring word of your compliance? The Velkari Chancellor asked with smug satisfaction. Han Wu activated his podium speaker system and spoke in a clear, steady voice that reached every corner of the chamber. The Terran Federation formally withdraws from the Galactic Council effective immediately. We invoke Article 7 of the Charter and renounce all agreements, treaties, and obligations under Council authority. The chamber exploded in shocked chatter. Aliens who had dismissed humans as weak and primitive now stared in disbelief. No species had ever voluntarily left the Council before. You cannot survive without us, the Nithak representative hissed. You are primitives playing with technology you barely understand. You will come crawling back within a year begging to be readmitted. Han Wu gathered his documents and prepared to leave the podium. Perhaps, he said calmly, or perhaps you will discover that underestimating humans is a mistake you cannot afford to make twice. As the human delegation walked out of the chamber for the last time, Han Wu could hear the aliens already discussing how to divide up human territories among themselves. They thought humanity was finished. They had no idea that the real story was just beginning. Dr. Kang Heo floated in the zero gravity of the secret research station, hidden in the asteroid belt beyond Jupiter. Through the thick windows of her laboratory, she could see the lights of mining ships harvesting metal from the floating rocks. The miners worked day and night gathering materials for the most ambitious project in human history. Show me the test results again, she said to her assistant. Dr. Park 1 activated the holographic display that filled the center of the lab. Numbers and equations floated in the air like glowing butterflies. The Fold space drive completed its third successful test yesterday. We sent an unmanned probe from Jupiter to Saturn and back in 4 hours. Kang Hyo smiled as she studied the data. 4 hours. The old chemical rockets would take months to make that trip. The alien ships would take weeks even with their fusion engines. How is that possible? Park 1 asked. The aliens have been traveling space for thousands of years. Their technology should be far ahead of ours. That's exactly the problem, Kang Hyo explained as she made notes on her tablet. They've been using the same basic technology for so long that they stopped looking for better ways. They think fusion drives and plasma weapons are the peak of engineering. They never imagined that space itself could be folded and twisted. The Fold space drive was based on theories that human scientists had been working on for decades. The aliens had dismissed these ideas as primitive nonsense when human researchers first presented them to the Galactic Council. Now those same theories were giving humanity a massive advantage. In another part of the station, Fleet Admiral Ro Bin reviewed construction reports with his engineering teams. The secret shipyards were working at maximum capacity, building a new class of warship unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. "How many ships are operational?" he asked Chief Engineer UJ. 50 completed with full weapons and drive systems, UJ reported. Another 100 in various stages of construction. At current pace, we'll have 1,000 ships ready within 2 years. Admiral Rowe studied the holographic display showing the sleek new warships. They were smaller than alien battleships but packed with revolutionary technology. Fold space drives that could outrun anything in space. Energy weapons that could punch through the strongest shields. Armor made from materials that didn't exist anywhere else in the galaxy. "What about the weapon tests?" he asked. "Beyond our best expectations," UJ replied with excitement. "The quantum pulse cannons can destroy an asteroid with one shot. The kinetic bombardment system can hit targets with the force of nuclear weapons without using any explosives at all." Meanwhile, on Earth, the colonies that had been evacuated were slowly integrating into an overcrowded world. New cities were being built in Antarctica and the Sahara Desert. Underwater farms covered the ocean floors. Every available space was being used to house the millions of people who had been forced to abandon their homes. But not everyone was focused on housing problems. In secret meetings around the world, military leaders were planning for the day when humanity would return to space. "The aliens think we're finished," said General Song Min during a classified briefing at the Global Defense Headquarters. "They divided our old colony worlds among themselves like we were never coming back." President Yoon Jae studied the intelligence reports on his desk. "What about their military preparations?" "Almost nothing," General Song replied. "They reduced their patrol fleets in our old territories. They're treating those systems like safe conquered space. The Velkari are strip mining 3 of our former colonies. The Nithaks are building luxury resorts on 2 others, and the Council's response to pirate attacks in the Outer Rim? The same as always. Committee meetings and strongly worded messages. The Draxians are getting bolder, but the Council won't authorize military action. They're afraid of looking too aggressive." President Yoon smiled grimly. "Perfect. Let them think peace can be maintained through paperwork and good intentions. When the time comes, we'll show them what real strength looks like." Back in the asteroid belt, Dr. Kang Hyo was putting the finishing touches on humanity's secret weapon systems. The laboratories were filled with prototypes of weapons. That would have seemed like magic to the aliens who had dismissed human science. "The cloaking system is operational," reported Dr. Lim Na from the Stealth Technology Division. "We can make entire fleets invisible to every known detection method. The aliens won't see us coming until we're right on top of them. And the shield generators, better than anything in the galaxy," Dr. Lim replied proudly. "We took their basic deflector technology and improved it by 300%. Our shields can absorb direct hits from their most powerful weapons and keep fighting." Captain Nam Il brought disturbing news from his spy missions in alien space. His merchant ship had been modified to look like a harmless trader, but it was packed with the most advanced sensors humanity could build. "The situation is getting worse," he reported during a secure video conference with Earth Command. "Pirate attacks are up 60% in the last year. 3 independent species have been enslaved by aggressive neighbors. The Council's response has been to form another committee to study the problem." "What about military strength?" asked Admiral Rowe. "They're weaker than ever," Nam replied. "The major powers are so confident in their superiority that they've reduced their fleets to save money. The Velkari decommissioned 200 ships last year. The Nithaks converted half their military vessels to cargo haulers. They think the galaxy is safe because everyone is afraid of them," Admiral Rowe mused. "They've never faced a real challenge to their authority." Dr. Kang Hyo joined the conference from her laboratory. "Admiral, I have good news. The weapon systems are ready for final testing. If you can spare a few ships, we can run live fire exercises in the outer asteroid fields." "Do it," Admiral Rowe ordered. "I want to know exactly what our new fleet can accomplish before we make our move." The weapons tests were more successful than anyone had dared hope. Human ships moving faster than alien sensors could track them. Energy weapons that could destroy targets from impossible distances. Kinetic bombardments that struck with the force of falling mountains. "We're not just ready to defend ourselves," Admiral Rowe told the Secret Council meeting that authorized the final phase of the plan. "We're ready to take our place as the galaxy's protectors." President Yoon looked around the table at the military leaders who had spent 5 years preparing for this moment. "Are we sure about this? Once we reveal ourselves, there's no going back. The galaxy will never see us the same way again. Good, replied General Song. I'm tired of being seen as primitive weaklings. It's time to show them what humans can really do. The order went out to all human fleets hidden throughout the solar system. Prepare for Operation Return. After 5 years of exile and preparation, humanity was ready to take their place among the stars again. But this time they would not be asking for permission. The alarm bells at Kepler Station screamed across the massive space facility like the cries of dying animals. Counselor Veltar of the Velkari rushed through the corridors as fast as his 8 mechanical legs could carry him. Emergency lights flashed red and orange, casting twisted shadows on the metal walls. Report, he demanded as he burst into the command center. The Nithak communications officer was hunched over her console, her scaled hands moving frantically across the controls. Draxian battle fleet approaching from hyperspace. Estimated arrival in 20 minutes. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, demanding our immediate surrender. Veltar's multiple eyes focused on the tactical display showing the approaching enemy ships, 47 Draxian heavy cruisers and battleships, armed with enough firepower to reduce Kepler Station to scrap metal in minutes. Where are our defense fleets? Veltar asked, though he already knew the answer. The nearest council ships are 6 hours away, replied Commander Toth of the station security forces. We sent most of our fleet to protect the core worlds after the Draxians started threatening the Centauri colonies. So we're alone. Yes. Sir? Veltar stared at the tactical display and felt something he had never experienced before. Helplessness. For 1,000 years, the Galactic Council had maintained peace through overwhelming strength and diplomatic pressure, but they had grown comfortable, reducing their military forces to save money, and assuming that fear of their reputation would keep aggressive species in line. The Draxians had called their bluff. Open a channel to the approaching fleet, Veltar ordered. The main screen filled with the image of War Leader Krax, the Draxian commander. His species looked like walking tanks made of bone and muscle, with tusks that could crush steel, and eyes that burned with constant anger. Behind him, Veltar could see the bridge of a massive battleship bristling with weapons. Counselor Veltar, Krax said with mock politeness.
How pleasant to see you again.
I trust you received our message about evacuating Kepler Station. This facility is protected by council law, Veltar replied, trying to keep his voice steady. Any attack on a council installation is an act of war against all member species. Krax laughed, a sound like grinding metal. What member species? The ones who sent their fleets away to protect themselves? The ones who abandoned this station to save their own worlds? Your precious council is weak, old spider. You've grown soft living on your reputation instead of your strength. The transmission ended abruptly. Veltar turned to his staff, all of whom were staring at him with expressions of barely controlled panic. Evacuate all non-essential personnel, he ordered. Send out distress calls on all frequencies and... He paused, hating himself for what he was about to say. Prepare to surrender the station. 20 light-years away. Colonel Onbora monitored the emergency transmissions from her position aboard the UES Indomitable. The human stealth cruiser hung invisible in the darkness between star systems, its advanced cloaking technology making it undetectable to any known sensors. Should we intervene? Asked Captain Lim Dong from the communications station. Colonel Bora studied the tactical data flowing across her screens. The Draxian fleet was impressive by galactic standards, but laughably obsolete compared to human technology. Her single ship could probably destroy half of them before they realized they were under attack. Admiral Rowe's orders were clear, she replied. We observe only. No engagement unless human lives are at risk. But sir, there are 2 million civilians on Kepler Station. Alien civilians, Bora corrected, though she felt sick saying it. The same species who voted to exile us 5 years ago. The same ones who called us primitive insects. Captain Lim looked uncomfortable but nodded. Yes, sir. The attack on Kepler Station began exactly 20 minutes later. Draxian warships swept in like a pack of hungry wolves, their weapons blazing orange and red in the darkness of space. The station's defensive shields held for less than 3 minutes before collapsing under the massive bombardment. Colonel Bora watched the massacre through her ship's sensors, her jaw clenched tight with suppressed emotion. Docking bays exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Habitat modules were torn apart like paper. Thousands of aliens died in the first few minutes of the attack. their bodies lost in the vacuum of space. "Sir," Captain Lim said quietly, "the Draxians are targeting civilian areas deliberately. They're not trying to capture the station. They're trying to destroy it completely." "I can see that, Captain." "Admiral, this is mass murder." Bora's hands gripped the arms of her command chair so hard her knuckles turned white. The aliens made their choice 5 years ago. They decided they didn't need humanity's help. This is the result of that decision. But even as she said the words, she knew they weren't entirely true. The civilians dying on that station weren't the ones who had voted to exile humanity. They were ordinary people trying to live their lives in peace, just like the human colonists who had been forced to abandon their homes. "Sir," Captain Lim called out urgently. "New transmission coming in. It's from the Harmony colony." The main screen switched to show a desperate alien face, one of the peaceful Altarian species that looked almost human, except for their blue skin and large eyes. The transmission was filled with static and interference. "This is Governor Yesh of Harmony Colony. Draxian forces are attacking our world. They're targeting schools, hospitals, civilian shelters. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. There are children here. Innocent children who—" The transmission cut off as another explosion shook the colony. Colonel Bora stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Around her, the bridge crew waited for orders. She could feel their eyes on her, waiting to see what kind of person she really was. "Captain Lim," she said finally. "Yes, sir? Send a message to Admiral Rowe. Full encryption, maximum priority." "What should I tell him?" Bora stood up from her command chair and walked to the main view screen. In the distance, she could see the fires of Kepler Station burning like a dying star. "Tell him that Operation Return is authorized. All human fleets are to converge on this position immediately." She turned to face her crew, her expression hard as steel. "And tell him that the Draxians are about to learn why it was a mistake to attack innocents while humans were watching." Captain Lim's fingers flew over his controls as he transmitted the message. Within minutes, responses came back from hidden human fleets throughout the galaxy, ships that had been waiting in the darkness for 5 long years, preparing for this moment. "Admiral Rowe confirms," Captain Lim reported. 1,000 ships are jumping to hyperspace now. Estimated arrival in 40 minutes. And our orders? Decloak and engage. Priority targets are any Draxian ships threatening civilian populations. Colonel Bora smiled for the first time in hours. "You heard the Admiral. All ships decloak and prepare for battle. Today we remind the galaxy what humanity stands for." Around Kepler Station, space itself seemed to shimmer and twist as 1,000 human warships materialized out of nothing. Ships that moved faster than alien sensors could track, armed with weapons that could punch through any known defense, crewed by humans who had spent 5 years preparing for this moment. The Draxians had wanted to test the strength of a weak galaxy. Instead, they were about to face the fury of a species that had been underestimated for the last time. Captain Park Jun stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution and watched space itself seem to tear apart around him. One moment there was empty darkness between the stars. The next moment, 1,000 human warships appeared like ghosts materializing from another dimension. "All ships report ready." "Sir," announced Lieutenant Kim So from her position at the communication station. "Fleet Admiral Rowe is requesting permission to commence the attack." Park Jun studied the tactical display showing the Draxian forces. 47 enemy ships that had seemed unstoppable moments before now looked small and fragile compared to the human fleet surrounding them. The aliens had no idea what was about to hit them. "Permission granted," Park Jun replied. "All ships, you are weapons free. Priority targets are any vessels threatening civilian populations." The Battle of Kepler Station lasted exactly 6 hours and 17 minutes. It was the most one-sided military engagement in galactic history. The Draxians never had a chance. Their ships were built for fighting enemies who used the same basic technology they had been using for thousands of years. Plasma weapons that took minutes to charge, fusion drives that moved at a fraction of light speed, shields that were designed to stop energy weapons and simple projectiles. They were not prepared for human fold space technology that let ships appear anywhere in the battle zone instantly. They were not prepared for kinetic bombardment weapons that struck with the force of meteors. They were not prepared for quantum pulse cannons that could punch through their strongest armor like it was made of paper. War leader, Krax watched his flagship's bridge fill with smoke and sparks as human weapons tore through. his fleet like a hurricane through a wheat field. His tactical officer was screaming damage reports, but Krax could barely hear him over the sound of explosions. "How many ships have we lost?" he demanded. 32 confirmed destroyed," the officer replied. 15 more heavily damaged and requesting permission to retreat. "We've been fighting for less than an hour. How is that possible?" "Sir, the human ships are moving faster than our sensors can track them. They appear out of nowhere, fire, and vanish before we can return fire. And their weapons? Sir, I've never seen anything like them." Krax looked at the main screen showing the battle around his ship. Human vessels danced through space like deadly butterflies, appearing and disappearing in flashes of twisted light. Every time they fired, another Draxian ship exploded or went dark. "Open a channel to the human fleet," Krax ordered. "I want to surrender." "Sir?" "You heard me. Open the channel." The screen filled with the image of a human officer wearing a crisp blue uniform. Captain Park Jun looked calm and professional, nothing like the primitive savage Krax had expected. "This is Captain Park Jun of the Terran Federation Navy," the human said in perfect galactic standard. "You have 30 seconds to withdraw your forces from the system before we destroy every remaining ship in your fleet." "Wait," Krax shouted. "We surrender." "We're withdrawing immediately." Captain Park's expression didn't change. "You had your chance to withdraw before you started murdering civilians. Now you pay the price for that choice." The transmission ended. Krax had just enough time to curse in his native language before quantum pulse cannons turned his flagship into expanding gas and debris. The last Draxian ship limped away from the battle zone 3 hours later, its engines barely functional and half its crew dead. Captain Park watched it disappear into hyperspace and made a mental note to have it tracked. The survivors would carry word of this battle back to their people. "Damage report," he requested. "0 ships lost," Lieutenant Kim reported with barely concealed amazement. "Minor damage to 7 vessels. No casualties. And the enemy? 46 ships destroyed. 1 allowed to escape for intelligence purposes as ordered." Park Jun nodded with satisfaction. The human fleet had just destroyed a major Draxian battle group without losing a single ship. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity was no longer the weak species that had been kicked out of the Council 5 years ago. Within hours of the battle, every government in the galaxy received the same message. Ambassador Li Hanwu's successor delivered it from the bridge of the massive human flagship Terra's Pride. "Citizens of the galaxy," she began, her voice calm and professional. "I am Ambassador Li Ha of the Terran Federation. 5 years ago, humanity was forced to leave the Galactic Council due to the prejudice and fear of older species. Today, we return." The holographic message was broadcast on every major communication network in known space. On hundreds of worlds, aliens stopped what they were doing to watch the human diplomat, who spoke with quiet confidence. "We understand that recent events have shown the limitations of the current galactic government," Ambassador Li continued. "Pirates attack civilian populations while council fleets are sent to protect only the most important worlds. Aggressive species like the Draxians threaten innocent people, while committees debate appropriate responses." On the bridge of his damaged ship fleeing toward Draxian space, War Leader Krax watched the human broadcast with growing dread. The woman speaking looked nothing like the primitive savage he had expected. She looked like someone who held the power of life and death over entire star systems. "The Terran Federation offers a new solution," Ambassador Li announced. "We will take responsibility for protecting civilian populations throughout the galaxy. Our fleets will patrol trade routes, defend colonies, and ensure that no species is abandoned to face threats alone." President Yoon Jae watched the broadcast from his office on Earth, surrounded by advisors and military leaders. Through his window, he could see the lights of New Geneva, one of the cities built to house refugees from the abandoned colonies. Those people had homes among the stars again. "In return," Ambassador Li continued, "we ask only for fair treatment and equal representation in galactic affairs. The days of humanity being treated as junior partners are over. We are prepared to take our place as protectors and leaders in a new galactic order." The response from the Galactic Council came within days. An emergency session was called, and for the first time in the Council's history, every single member species attended. The chamber that had once echoed with dismissive laughter at human proposals now buzzed with nervous whispers. Councillor Veltar, still recovering from injuries sustained during the attack on Kepler Station, rose to address the assembly. His multiple eyes focused on the human delegation as if seeing them for the first time. The Council recognizes the changed circumstances of our relationship with humanity, he said carefully. We are prepared to discuss new terms for human membership in this body. Ambassador Li activated her podium speaker system, just as Han Wu had done 5 years before. But this time she spoke from a position of strength rather than desperation. The Terran Federation accepts readmission to the Galactic Council, she announced. Under the following conditions: full voting rights equal to any member species, territorial sovereignty over all systems currently under human protection, and joint authority over Council military operations. The chamber erupted in shocked chatter. Never before had a species dictated terms to the Council. But as aliens looked at the tactical displays showing human fleets patrolling throughout the galaxy, they realized they had no choice. The vote was unanimous, 847-0 in favor of accepting human terms. 6 months later, Ambassador Li stood in the rebuilt Kepler station, now serving as headquarters for the Joint Defense Initiative. Through the observation windows, she could see mixed fleets of human and alien ships working together to patrol the galaxy's most dangerous regions. Her aide, Commander Wanbin, approached with the latest reports. Ma'am, the Council has formally requested human leadership of the Frontier Defense Project. They want us to take command of all military operations in the Outer Rim. Lee smiled as she watched a human cruiser dock alongside a Velkari science vessel. Tell them we accept, but with expanded authority. If we're going to protect this galaxy, we're going to do it our way. Outside the station, Captain Nam Il piloted his ship through a routine patrol route that would have been impossible 5 years ago. His crew included officers from 6 different species, all working together under human command to keep the trade lanes safe. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving a distress call from the Vega system. Pirate attack on a merchant convoy. Set course for Vega, maximum fold space velocity, Nam ordered. Launch fighters and prepare for combat operations. As his ship twisted space around itself and jumped across dozens of light years in seconds, Nam smiled at the thought of how much had changed. 5 years ago, humanity had been kicked out of the galaxy for being too weak and primitive. Now they were the ones everyone called when there was trouble. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate a species with the courage to walk away from those who refuse to respect them. Because when they come back, they might just be strong enough to save everyone else.